Please come to order. Next, pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Public input. This time I think I'll call on Fort Peterson.
Good evening. Do I keep this on during? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for your time tonight, and more importantly, do I have to tell you, I'm Corey Peterson, by the way, owner of the Hemsley. Again, thank you for your time tonight, and more importantly, thank you for your service. I don't think the public has a complete appreciation for the difficulty it is serving in public office during this most difficult time, and I do appreciate it. I know nothing's easy, and the decisions you make are based on facts that probably change on a daily, if not more often, basis. But anyway, I do appreciate your service. Thank you very much. I'm here tonight just to continue an effort that I started on the 22nd of July, to just inquire, to request a very small change to your Ordinance 5240 passed at the last council meeting. Sorry, wardrobe malfunction. As I mentioned in the letter that I sent to you, I was just looking to tweak one little sentence, or part of one sentence, in the ordinance. And the reason I did that was I just felt like it was, I guess, I'm not sure how scientifically necessary it was, but I was afraid that it would set our businesses or business owners in Lensboard up to be essentially breaking the law in their own businesses. I want to be very clear that I fully understand the importance of keeping our citizens and our guests safe and healthy, but that one provision just inspired me to pursue it a little bit, and hopefully you'll bear with me here. But I'm really uncomfortable being up here even talking about it, because I don't want to take away from the importance of keeping our citizens safe and the ordinance itself. But again, now that it's not on the agenda tonight, I doubt it'll be a possibility to get amended before it sunsets, but hopefully you'll consider this in future ordinances that can get changed if you so choose. What I'm referring to is Section 2, Item 2A, that reads, sorry, gotta get the mask. This is a good mask, by the way. Found a business just down the street. Section 2, Item 2A, employees are working in any space visited by customers or members of the public, regardless of whether anyone from the public is present at the time. That's the one little thing that I took issue with. I've talked to other businesses, and I think they feel the same. Anyway, regardless, I've suggested that we replace that regardless of whether anyone from the public is present at the time to any time more than one person is present, and social distancing is not easily continuously achieved. So, the thought of that would be to avoid, let's say I have a clerk that's working by herself, hasn't seen a customer in 2 hours, takes her mask off, technically she's breaking the law. Or if I were in my own business, 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday by myself, without a mask for this ordinance, I would be breaking the law. So anyway, that was just a little tweak. I take no issue with the ordinance as a whole. I have a letter for you from me with a few questions that I hope that can be answered answered, but I won't take that time up now. In addition, there's a letter from there's a coalition of business associations that had questions on the entire governor's executive order. And while they're taking issue with the whole executive order, I am not, but there are still some really good questions in their letter to the governor that I think would be helpful for the businesses of Lensbourg to hear answers to as well. So anyway, that's my purpose for meeting, for being here tonight with you. I appreciate your time. Thanks for bearing with me as I'm about to pass out up here because I can't breathe. But I do appreciate it, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you have, or either on the side or later tonight. I do appreciate your time and attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Anybody else who'd like to address the council, public input? Okay. Hearing none, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes. I think we should listen to our business owners. I've heard from several, and I think we should consider the changes that have been recommended. I think we have to have some common sense in here. I don't think we can answer all these questions that are posed here. These are good questions, and I don't know that anybody knows the answers to those. I think there's got to be some common sense used, and if someone is in their own business, and I mean, if there's nobody in the building, it seems somewhat ridiculous that they would be required to wear a mask. Maybe the language could be tuned a little bit so it's a little more clear. But yeah, I mean, if somebody's in your business and a customer, I think you should have a mask on. If you can keep 6 feet from your employees, I think it should be up to the employees and the employer on what those rules are inside the business.
Okay, so Mark, you'll be bringing an amendment. You want to just have it under your name about masks?
Sure.
Okay.
Right, Greg?
Yes.
All right. Any other amendments to the agenda? All right. The mayor's report. Tomorrow is a big day. It is election day. There are 4 locations in Lensbourg for our citizens to vote. The polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. The last day of the swimming pool being open will be August 16th as sports teams start practicing the next day. So there goes a lot of our lifeguards and staff. Bethany College will start welcoming students back to campus at the end of this week, August the 5th. Look on their website to read all of the information about how Bethany plans for the coming fall semester. It has taken a lot, as it has taken a lot of almost any organization that's trying to deal with the public. And so keep a lot of discretion in your concerns about things. Ordinance 5240, after having been approved at the council meeting on July 20th, went into effect on July the 30th. The only admonition that I have is please care about your fellow citizens, wear a mask, socially distance, and use good hygiene in hand washing. This is a difficult time that we are going through right now. We have many families in our community who are going through some really difficult health situations. Some are COVID related and some are not. Please remember all of these families in our community. And that is all. Does anyone else have any? Holly? Is there anything that you want me to say about groups? No. All right. Let's go on through the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Roxy?
Jody? Yes. Emo?
Yes.
Rebecca? Yes. Wade?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
The consent agenda
brought this item to the council 2 weeks ago. I don't know if anybody has any questions. It's a piece of ground on the north side of Main Street Apartments that is undevelopable. It's owned by the city of Lensbourg. The adjoining property owner wants to purchase it to have control of it. And we had some problems, Bill pointed out, with the description of the ground. Bill was able to fix that description, and attached to this time is a quick claim deed with the property. And so I'm asking for a motion to approve the sale and transfer of the ground.
Do I hear a motion to approve this sale?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Roxy? I'm
Just
sorry.
a quick comment.
Yes.
I'm not sure the city actually owns this. I think it's kind of a no man's land piece of property. But by doing a quitclaim deed, we're telling the owners that we do not make any claim on it. And therefore, whatever the title is, we're relinquishing any claim that we would have. We're not guaranteeing that we own this.
Okay. Thank you. The phantom land sale.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Roxy, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
How do we do, I'm sorry, the $500, if we're not sure we own that, what are they paying us for?
They're paying us for us not making any kind of claim on the ownership of the property.
Any other discussion? Roxy?
Mark,
Still yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Rick,
Sure.
Blaine,
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Emo,
Yes.
Jody.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Next item is the 2021 budget.
Go ahead, Larry.
For the 2021 budget, the way they, trying to figure out the right words, there's a certain way that the budget dollars are figured, calculated. It's based upon a formula that the state has. Based upon this formula, there was about a 0.73 mil decrease, but then council asked that ambulance be funded by almost a 2 mil increase. I was able to work up a 1.99 mil increase, which made about a 1.23 total mil increase because of the decrease before. So we're looking at just a slight increase over the mill levy from last year.
Is that it? Oh, you want to say?
Unless
Okay.
anybody has any questions on there.
I would add also to that is we have budgeted an increase in refuse rates. So if you get Polycarp trash service, there'll be a rate increase. We receive a 3.5% rate increase for the service from the First and Area Solid Waste Utility every year. The last year we increased rates was 2015 on solid waste. Also, there'll be a water rate increase. This is due to the fact that we are now spending out of reserves to operate the water utility right now.
And that increase was also in 2015, so it's been 5 years.
Yes,
Over 5 years for that.
thank you. Unless there's questions.
So it's a very difficult budget because of decreased revenues based upon the COVID. So
Right.
it's hard to get to the numbers that we got to.
Can I have a motion to approve the 2021 budget?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Any questions for Larry or Greg?
This allows us to provide ambulance service?
Financially, yes. I know Chief has been very active in the recruitment process. He could probably address the number issue a little better than I could. The challenge we've had is retaining volunteer EMTs. We have several that have either taken jobs with full-time paid services, or we've had a few move out of state. I know Chief has been very actively promoting the opportunity. We have a class in the fall that right now, Chief, is at 7 signed up that are willing to provide service to the community. We have 2 definite new appointments that are already certified, EMTs, and potentially a 3rd. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, we have one more at the next meeting.
And we'll have a 3rd one for appointment at the August 17th meeting. So he has been very busy in trying to recruit and increase those numbers. But yeah, the challenges with EMS service have been both financial and staffing. Financially, for every dollar we bill, we get about 52 cents. So makes it difficult.
Any other discussion? Brandon?
Rick,
Yes.
Blake,
Yes?
Rebecca. Yes. Emo,
Yes.
Jody.
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
Kirsten.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is library mural.
This is a request from the community library to have a mural painted on the east wall of the building. You see a mock-up of that, an example of what they want to do. Normally, a mural in a downtown district would simply go before design review for approval, but because this is a city-owned facility and this is a material modification, we think it's appropriate for the council to also give their approval. Design review did unanimously approve the mural. So I'm asking for the council's approval of the art. And Susanna's here if you have any questions
Okay.
for her directly.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve this?
I'll make the motion to approve the library mural.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion?
I know the library board is very excited about it. I've heard from several of their members, and I think it looks great.
I think it looks nice. Be neat. Is there anything that it restricts murals like this on the front of the building, just out of curiosity?
Design review can turn it down. They might.
Any other discussion? Anna?
Mark,
Yes.
Ed.
Yes.
Kirsten.
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Blake,
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Emo,
Yes.
Jody.
Yes. Okay, the next item is on the redoing the parking lot.
Moving along, another request from the library to rebuild their parking lot on the alley side. This project is a result of a successful grant application, part of the 60-year celebration of the facility. It was a David Nutt grant award, all right? 3 bids were received. Again, this is a material modification to a city-owned building, so we're asking for council's approval. The money will come from the library funds. So I'm asking for.
So you were asking
to the library board to award power
Power,
construction.
but it's power construction.
Yes.
Right. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve that?
So moved.
For second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve, let's see, what was our bid? 10?
$10,843.
All right. Any discussion?
This can be voice voted because it's not the council spending the money.
Okay.
So we're not coming up with the other $843?
No, we are not.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Osbourne sculpture donation.
In the packet, you see examples of two photos of two large steel sculptures crafted by Don Osbourne. They were recently moved into Lensboard for repairs. The two volunteers that were involved in that relocation, Mural artist Michael Gray, asked me to ask you if it would be okay if they could locate those sculptures in town near the trail. And they are proposing two locations. One near the South Trailhead parking lot, visible from two places on Highway 4, a real visible spot. And then the other one in Skate Park near Bethany College worked on for many years. And we talked about this in the staff meeting today. I really can't give you a lot of details on the ownership of these sculptures, whether they are truly permanently displaced. But I don't know that I want to get into a negotiation with the family or these volunteers without your approval for this specific setting. If you don't want them there, then I don't have anything to talk about with the volunteers. So I'm asking for council's opinion of this siting. And if you have other questions, I'll certainly take that back to the volunteers.
I don't know how many of you knew Don Osbourne. He passed away last week. Wonderfully talented man. He's been back here in Lensboard for about 15 years. Spent
15.
the majority of his career away from here, but a very successful career. So I think this is a very exciting thing for Lensboard to be able to have two of Don's sculptures here. And I think these two locations look good. Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas or?
I think it's amazing that they're willing to let the city have them, and it's an honor. I know there were tons of students from Bethany that appreciated when Don was a professor there, and I think it's great to have these on the trail.
What was Don's intent prior to him passing? Do we have any idea what he was planning to do with them?
I don't know, Becky, do you know, did you
No,
talk about?
Merle Larson is here. Merle,
Merle, no.
did you
Oh,
hear the
Merle,
question?
I didn't see it come in.
I wasn't able to hear what you were talking about very well, so is there a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we knew what he wanted to do with them, if we had any idea.
What Don wanted to do?
Yes.
Not that I could answer for him. Not familiar, Don passed away last Wednesday. He has two children, those are the heirs. He has a number of pieces of work that are stored also in here in Lensborg in the storage. The two large pieces were out on his property. He had a farm out on Fargo Road towards Gypsum and Roxbury. That's where those were moved. He did that work when he was instructor at the State University of New York. And, now the name escapes. But anyway, those were transferred there. He hadn't moved out here. So it became obvious that they sold the property, the farm, and they decided that was not part of the property, so we moved them. But where do we put them? And we thought, discussion over coffee, it'd be kind of nice to have them on the trail. His children certainly weren't ready, they both live in New York, they weren't ready to haul them back there. Dowers helped us do some repair work on it, and we just like to have a place to display them. They're of a size that there's not many buildings that would be suitable for. They're meant to be outside. Interesting question is, I suppose, that his children still are the official owners of those two pieces. That they're not interested in it unless somebody wants to buy them, then I think they would be very interested. But in the meantime, we'd like to have them on display here alongside the trail. It seems like a good location for them. And we've gotten everything else done, and we got prepared to move them. We just want a concrete pad to set them.
Any other questions? Or?
Well, so again, the motion is just to approve these locations. And then the next step would be to negotiate with the heirs if it's okay for us to put these at these locations and obtain at least temporary ownership of them, or is that accurate?
I don't know how that would be settled. Perhaps Mr. Cassinas could answer that
Okay,
question.
just off the cuff, yeah, I think at this point, the request is to allow them to be located on city property without determination of the ownership. If you want to negotiate determination of the ownership, if Don's children want to donate those to the city, that's one thing. If they want to sell them to the city, they would need to come back and make an offer to the city to see if the city wanted to purchase them, or if they wanted to be put subject to their ownership on a continuous loan. But I think at this point, to determine ownerships may be a little bit premature. It's just a question of whether the city wants to allow them to be placed on city property. But if it is allowed to be placed on city property, then that next step needs to be addressed with the heirs.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the meantime,
Yes.
they are sitting in a gravel park behind our well. And to me, that's just a tremendous waste of what would really be an excellent addition to the trail.
Will they have some type of brackets on the bottom so they can be anchored down?
Yes, they welded on, we just call them ears, so that they could be then bolted down to that concrete pad. So we've made provisions in Dowers put those on both pieces.
So, staff is recommending that these be allowed to be placed in these two locations. And you were needing the blessing of the city council to do such a thing?
Yes.
All right, do I hear a motion to do that? Or did we already have a motion? No, we didn't. Okay.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Merle, thank you very much for all the work that you and Mike Ray have done on this. So, great. All right. Bethany College banners.
Good evening, Mayor.
Hello.
I will stay with the theme of the evening and do something that I don't normally get to do, and that's simply ask for a recommendation or approval of something that doesn't cost us any money. Doesn't only happen. 2018, Bethany College requested the approval to put banner mounts on the light poles on Swenson Street so they could put banners on them leading into the college campus. The banner mounts are fantastic. They've worked really well. The banners, not so much. They've faded very quickly into a color that, well, let's just say we've had a lot of comments or representative of something else we don't want to talk about. So They have banners that they have placed around the campus, and they would like to place those on these light poles as well. The light poles are the city's. I told them that they could not do that on their own. That would be something that we could do or would do to make sure that nothing happened. But they also needed to have the approval of city council to change those out. So all I'm asking for this evening is your approval to replace the banners on Swenson Street for Bethany College.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Just in time. And the banners are here and.
School starting and they'll be welcoming in.
All right. Hearing no other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Lucas.
Good evening. So, before you is an item that way below the spending limit, but really wanted to have an opportunity to have it come before you. At the study session of June 15th, the council had a good discussion on racial justice, and one of the questions was, what are some next steps? And so, staff was working on what could the next steps be, and having a community book seems like a possible next step. The book, I went through it in the staff agenda item, talked about 3 books that I looked at that I thought might be appropriate. The one that I settled on to recommend to you is also the book that a book discussion group at Messiah and Bethany churches has been reading. And so I think it's an excellent opportunity to affirm the work that they're doing in their discussions. It's also, it's of the 3 books, I would say it's the most page turner of the 3. And the author also avoids partisan politics, which obviously is important to the work of the city. The proposal would be to purchase 100 books, get a 55% discount by purchasing 100 books. I talked with Suzanne at the library. They would be happy to take 50 into circulation so that as this is declared a community book, with 50 books, it should be pretty easy for someone to walk into the library and find one on the shelf to keep that conversation going. The motion, so 50 copies to the library, and then council would each receive a copy, and staff would each receive a copy. And the motion would be to purchase 100 copies of So You Want to Talk About Race for the price of $765.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion here?
I appreciate the work that you've done on this, Lucas, and I do think we need to figure out as a community how we're going to move forward in this time. And I think that book, I was part of the book discussion at Messiah and Bethany Church, and it is a very well done book and also eye-opening in a lot of different ways to talk about race. So thank you for your work.
Comments? Hearing none. $1,000.
Well, it's an expenditure, so
Just go ahead.
still has to be a roll call.
Jody,
Yes.
Emo,
Yes.
Rebecca, Lee,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Kirsten,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Right-of-way settlement claim deed.
The property owner, 505 South Main Street, filed suit against, or made a claim against the city regarding the property at 505 South Main. You'll see in the exhibit that half the property is in railroad right-of-way, former railroad right-of-way, which the city rail banked. And so, the property owner is wanting full use of that property. You'll see that even the blue line on that exhibit represents the southern edge of the right-of-way. And you'll see that it goes through, even through the house. The city attorney has negotiated with the attorney for the property owner and the settlement is to provide a quick claim deed for lots 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, and 46, Main Street in the Riverside Addition. The city, under this quick claim deed, would retain any and all easements on the right to use and maintain any existing utility lines, public streets, and sidewalks in their current locations. And I would request a motion to approve that settlement and the execution of the quick claim deed.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
Did this, from the way that this reads, it makes it seem like they threatened to sue us.
Oh, they did sue us.
They literally did, okay.
There was, this is what's known as a quiet title action, where they filed an action both against the city and the Union Pacific Railroad. The old railroad right-of-way extended far into those lots on Riverside Addition. And how that house was ever built there in the first place, I really don't know, but that goes back 100 years. But the point is, once that quitclaim, or that quiet title action is filed against the city, we had to defend ourselves against this. In talking with the attorney for the plaintiff, I asked them to do a survey to set the corners, and then we could make sure that there was no encroachment of city utilities, sidewalks, streets, or whatever. And as an alternative to that proposal for me, we came up with this idea to do, we're saying, we don't claim anything on those lots except where we might have a utility line existing now. And if in fact that does turn out to be the case, if some point in the future we had to go back in and move a power pole. Chris took a look at it, and Chris said, there's a power pole that may be very, very close to the line. The point is, we're not giving up really anything that is of use to the city at this point, as long as we retain that right to maintain and improve our utilities. The initial action could have been that it even applied up to the trail itself, or to streets or sidewalks, and this protects anything that we have that might encroach or infringe upon those lots as they're described in the deed.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Bill, for explaining.
That's the end of quick claim deed night.
All right.
Good evening again. Before you is a memorandum of understanding between the city of Lensboard and University County. This is to govern the CARES Act funds. This is a large pot of federal money that flowed to the states. Kansas elected to give. Kansas has broken that money into 3 different pieces, and the first piece has been sent directly to counties for counties then to disperse on priority being county needs, city needs, and school district needs. And then also to entertain requests from nonprofits, for sure. There are, within that money, 2 pieces. One is reimbursements. So for costs incurred since the beginning of the COVID crisis that were extraordinary, unbudgeted costs essentially. the second piece is direct aid. So looking out from now until the end of the year, what expenses related to responding to COVID-19 do we anticipate? And we have worked up, and we'll be making our request to the county tomorrow, actually, assuming that you will approve this. We have $111,409 in reimbursements that we'll be asking for, and then in direct aid, $70,000. And I think that's a fair presentation.
All right, so you, you are wanting us to approve the memorandum of understanding with
Yes.
Person County. Okay, regarding CARES Act funding. Right. Do I hear a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. And if all of this money, 5 million, whatever it is, that came to McPherson County is not spoken for, it is turned back?
Yeah, there's a process. I would anticipate that it'll get spent.
Oh,
I
okay.
would anticipate that if it, if in the first round of applications, the county may come back and say, is there additional direct aid spending that you might want to do before they would just send the money back to the state?
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.
Okay, the last park request of the This from the Lensboard Mural Committee, a mural on the south wall of the Swenson Park restroom. This would be the wall facing the
Shelter house.
shelter house, thanks, and the bench mill. The request is at no cost to the city. The mural committee has raised the money to do it. And you see an example of the art. And the mural committee is here if you have any questions. Staff certainly recommends approval of the mural. Another example of the city council approving something that the city owns. Design review is not involved in this one. And so I'm asking for a motion to.
Motion to approve this, that's what you're wanting? To approve this going, that mural going on the Swenson Park east wall, or south wall.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Falling asleep. Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion?
We are up in our game at Lensboard. I'm pretty excited about tonight and all the art presentations, so thank you, Gary.
The, in this drawing that we have here, the green man.
He's gonna be there.
Huh? The green man is going to be where a person could stand there and pretend to be a Viking oaring a ship. Is that correct?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
We're trying to make them
Interactive. Okay. Got it. Okay. It's a great design.
Thanks for the explanation.
You were wondering who the green man was? That didn't look quite right. Any other comments, concerns, discussion?
And the artist is here too.
Well, the artist is here too. Oh, hello. You are Cal McNichols. Cool design. All right. No other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great. Okay, Al? We look forward to it. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you to the amendment to tonight's agenda. And Mark, reasons to present that?
I think we need to look back at the section 2, item 2 of the ordinance that is requesting business employees to wear masks when no customer is present in their place of business. I don't know how we go about answering the questions Corey's asked, but I think a start would be I get it that by the time this goes through that this thing may expire, but there's also a very good chance that it's gonna get extended, so this could already be put in there if it is extended.
I guess I just feel like, is it necessary? I mean, has enforcement been a problem, Chief?
I think it's more protection for the business than enforcement, because they're not breaking the law.
Right, but has that been an issue? Has enforcement been going around and looking for people to?
I would think not, but.
So, I mean, to me, it seems superfluous.
I have a tendency to agree. You know, we discussed this earlier and actually talked to the chief, and it was in a newsletter put out there that that a lot of it's going to be education.
Right.
So, I mean, I understand where Corey's coming from, that let's just say somebody, person XYZ is walking down the street, looks in his business, sees an employee in there all by themselves, no mask, they call PD, I saw somebody with no mask. Again, PD can go in and do the education process, and I think there's some officer discretion that's allowed as well, that on whether or not to actually note a violation or to enforce that.
And I think, provided that we haven't had any, serious issues, to your point, I think the reason for that part of the mandate has to do with what a person does when they might have their mask off. If I'm by myself in the store and I take my mask off because I'm by myself and I have a coughing fit, and then 30 seconds later a customer walks into the store, then we've negated the purpose of the mask mandate in the first place, because the employee has coughed into the space where the employee is walking in. And we don't have any definitive scientific facts on, surface, how long it's hanging in the air and surface and all that, but we do know that that's not it is a somewhat of a factor, and so I just don't think I don't see cause, based on the fact that we aren't seeing any problems with enforcement. I don't think it's worth the risk of backing away from a fundamental purpose of the mandate.
Of undermining the integrity of the mandate.
Yeah.
I don't think you're doing that. I think Corey's trying to protect himself. Yes, we could leave it up to the discretion of the police department to not write that person a ticket, but I think that's what Corey's trying to get rid of, is that gray area of protecting him he's not breaking the law now. If he wants to sit in his office at 8 o'clock, it says he needs to have a mask on.
I think the 8 o'clock is a different issue, right? I mean, I guess we have to talk to the.
Not what the ordinance is written.
If it's open to the public if it's not open to the public, I guess we need the attorneys maybe.
Yeah, I think the whole thing needs a lot of definitions. I mean, we're not even a week into it. It's probably why we haven't gotten a lot of questions, but like, if you're on the trail and if you can social distance, do you need to wear a mask? I haven't seen anybody on the mask wear a trail yet, or on the trail wear a mask. I just think that it needs to be
I've seen tons of people on the trail with the mask on.
Well, on the way here,
And
there
not
was a woman
everybody does
bicycling,
that.
and none of them
You're
had
right.
it. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if we're gonna have something and we're not gonna enforce it, why are we gonna have it? We need to define these things that people have questions
I think the trail is defined. If you're able to maintain a 6-foot distance with only infrequent or incidental moments of closer proximity. I mean, that's
So
defined.
why is it
within-
different in a business then?
Because
It's
outdoors is
enclosed.
different than
Outdoors is different than inside.
But if the business is closed,
Well, I think that's what Rebecca was saying. If it's not open to the public, then you aren't. If it's 8 o'clock at night.
It doesn't specify during business hours. Maybe it should just be amended to be only in effect during business hours.
I'm just saying there's a lot of work that has to be done to get rid of these gray areas, that we can't answer a lot of these questions. I mean, If we're not gonna enforce it again, yeah, why make an ordinance? But don't put businesses at risk by saying you have to have a mask on at all times, or you could get a ticket. That's what we're saying.
Regardless of enforcement, there are some individuals that will follow the law and they would feel like a criminal if they didn't do it.
Well, at the end of the day, we know that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and wearing a mask, and social distancing, and washing your hands are what's keep you safe. This is a short-term problem. It's a very short-term problem. I mean, a year at the most, right? I mean, this comes back up September 9th, I think, is when it
That's
goes
when
out
it
for us.
expires, correct.
I just think it's a lot of hullabaloo over something that's pretty short-term.
Well, we don't know that.
Why wouldn't we
I
extend
think
it?
we know that.
We're not gonna extend it on September 9th?
No, but a year in the term of a lifespan is not very much, even if it goes on to a year.
A
That's-
year's long enough, we needed to make definitions.
Yeah, especially if you're breaking the law by doing stuff that seems common sense.
Well, I go back to my original thoughts on this mandate to begin with, and that is, there's already 16 exceptions that can virtually eliminate you from wearing a mask at any time if you want to. So, in my mind, making an amendment to this and adding, modifying one sentence isn't really another exception, it's just some clarification. I don't see the harm in trying to do that. And whether that's, I don't know whether that action be taken now or the next vote, that amendment be made. But I don't really see where that's.
Well, I guess an important question on that aspect is, on September 9th, would we be voting just to extend the current ordinance, or would we be enacting a new ordinance?
It's gonna take an ordinance to extend even the old ordinance. So if you wish to make any amendments to it, or if you wish to extend it, you're still going to have to pass a new ordinance, no matter what that new one would be. If the new one has changes in it, then you would change the language in this. If you are continuing the existing one, given that there's an end date in the one that has been passed, you still have to pass an ordinance to amend that, go through the publication process again.
Well, I guess one of the big questions then that I would have is, how many people think that there's problems with this that need to be reworded or redone differently? If there's enough people that feel that way, then we probably just need to look at making the ordinance match what we want to do by that point in time.
You would need to instruct staff to bring an ordinance on whatever date it is.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I don't think you have to have a written ordinance in front of you to pass an ordinance tonight. I think you could assign the appropriate number to it and say, we, City of Lensboard, hereby pass the following ordinance to amend section 2.A to read as follows. As long as those words are written into the minutes of this meeting, exactly, and then the ordinance is published just as, or the amendment is published just as the original ordinance was, I think you can proceed in that fashion.
The amendment is published when?
It's the same situation we ran into last time. It'll be a week from Thursday.
It'd be a week from Thursday that it get published,
So,
which would be the 12th.
so I'd like to hear, Bill, this has been presented as an issue that's protecting the business. How is this ordinance different than any other, potential infraction that an employee might make while on the job? If I'm taking a letter to the post office as part of my duties and I jaywalk, I mean, how does that compare to a situation like that? I
Well,
don't
let's
even know.
back
if
up.
it's-
We don't have a jaywalking.
Well, okay,
ordinance,
let's
but-
say I speed on the
Yes.
way to the post office. How does this situation compare with that? How are those two similar?
Well, if you're speeding, you're speeding. And if you're written up for speeding, you will pay, and convicted, you will pay a fine. If you are written up for violating this ordinance by not wearing a mask in your business, whether someone is there or not, if you're convicted, you will pay a fine. In one situation, you could be found guilty of speeding. In this situation, you could be found guilty of not wearing a mask.
So what I'm hearing you say is that those are two, there's nothing specific about the mask ordinance that puts an employee or a business owner in a different situation than any other potential infraction that an employee might make on the job.
Well, no, it does, because this applies specifically to the business location.
Because you were on the premises of the
Correct,
business.
yeah.
So then what about an infraction that I could have made while I was on the premises of the building? If I had an illegal substance or something, I mean.
Sure, you could be charged with that.
So then it's this, but then that would be the same. Again, there's nothing about the mask ordinance that is different than any
Yeah,
other
the
potential
mask-
infraction that an employee could make while at work.
I think the mask ordinance specifically states that the business owner is responsible for enforcing the ordinance in their place of business. Those aren't the exact words, but it's pretty close to that if I remember right.
Well, the way it reads, all businesses, organizations, nonprofit associations in the city must require all employees, customers, visitors, and members of the public to wear a mask or a face covering when employees are working in any space visited by customers of the public, regardless of whether anyone is present. I don't think it's the employee who gets charged here. I think it is the owner of the business, because a business must require all employees to wear a mask.
But if the business has that requirement and an employee is not following the requirement, then, I mean.
No, this puts the responsibility on the business.
I know, but if the business has said, I require you to wear a mask, and the employee does not wear the mask.
No, I think the business is responsible, which is different than the situation where somebody's got a joint in their possession.
Okay.
I think that's a different situation. That's not the employer's responsibility, that's the employee's.
But the entire point of the mask ordinance is for public health. That is the entire, bottom line, simple answer. It's for public health. We're not doing it because we think it's fun, because we think it's comfortable. I wear one all day, every day, because I'm gonna be at a school with 1,100 kids and another 100 staff, and we do it because we know it's the only thing we know besides social distancing. Wearing a mask and social distancing are both what's recommended by public health. Not one or the other, it's both. So, to me, that's the bottom line.
I think the example that he gave with the, preacher at church, that kind of summarizes it for me. They can't do a video with nobody there, nobody's been there all day long, but because it's a public area, they can't do a video without one. There's no one else in the building. That's pushing it.
Our church is doing it, I don't know. We care about the members of our church.
Well, I think that the ordinance, the way it's written now, we've only got a month left on it, basically. Is that right?
Yes, expires September 9th.
Yeah, right. So, and we're still just fresh into this whole ordinance. Let it stand, let it ride as it is. We've only got a month. And at that time, we're gonna have to make a decision. Do we continue on or have another ordinance? Do we just let it expire? And I don't think that's gonna happen, but, we're talking a month.
Sorry.
If you're going to consider this, I would make the suggestion you consider it at the second August meeting, so that you don't get to the first meeting in September it's gonna expire by the 9th, and you're not gonna have a period where there's any ordinance. So I would suggest, if you want to consider it, as Rick is suggesting, that it be done at the next council meeting rather than the first meeting in September.
So this clause in here, anytime more than one person is present and social distancing is not easily continuously achieved, does that say you don't need to wear a mask and social distance?
Which section are you looking at there, Kirsten?
The top Hemschlag letter.
Oh, I don't
This
have that. I'm just
suggestion.
looking at the ordinance itself.
Which it could be worded different.
I think it could be worded differently as well.
I feel like
I
it'd be
mean,
better
I'm-
to say anytime the public is not allowed on premises for more than X amount of time.
I would be more interested in, in considering something like that, because I don't think this is appropriate. I think the purpose of the ordinance is, I'm open to the public, I need to act like somebody from the public could be in my business at any point, and this is not that. We don't want people taking them on and off, all the handling, that's completely counterproductive to the intent of the mask order to begin with. I mean, if we need to change something, it should be along the lines of making it acceptable for business owners to be working in their office by themselves after hours, without a mask, but not as presented up here.
How far do we go?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so they leave the mask on, and then they forget to wash their hands. Are we gonna have a hall monitor there to make sure they actually wash their hands if they touch their mask? We shouldn't be doing this. I've looked around the room, everybody's doing it. Everybody, nobody, I don't think anybody in here has not touched their mask. I haven't seen one person get up to go wash their hands or sanitize after doing that.
I have sanitized my hands twice during this meeting.
Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is, where do we draw the line on this? What's the next step after this? I mean, we've already seen that by the next meeting, if the governor does something or somebody in Washington, we're all gonna have face shields on as well. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the good news is we have a pandemic every 100 years, right? So we're not ever gonna have to face it again.
We don't know.
You're not
Yeah,
right.
pretty sure.
Can I get that in writing?
Pretty sure.
I just think we put the ordinance, a good ordinance in place that gives the business the protection to say, look, there's like if I go into Scott's, there's a city ordinance that if I go into a grocery store where there's other people, I have the city ordinance that says you need to wear a mask. Telling a business how their employees should act or how they have to, I mean, it somewhat has to be left up to the business. I'm not gonna go to a business if I go in there and there's a bunch of people not wearing masks and I don't feel like it's safe. I don't know that they're cleaning things. I mean, there's so many unknowns that I think we're overstepping a little bit by saying you sit in your office all day and stare at a computer, you have to wear a mask, or you're violating the law.
So we're deciding who deserves to be protected and who doesn't.
I mean, I don't think it's our decision. I don't think we can
If it's a
decide.
public health issue, it's a public health issue.
Well, we can vote on it.
Yep.
Why we did this.
I would say if we are going to vote on this, it would probably be beneficial to make it where it's something to do with times when the areas are not open to the public. Because it's a very valid point that the way this is written, if you were, say, at Cap's gas station and nobody's in there right now, you could take it off. And then somebody walks in 5 minutes later and, oh yeah, my mask.
Well, and I guess as I'm reading it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the intent that Corey's more looking for is to make it more of a, when business is not open, or business, public business isn't being performed, something like that. We might want to look more to Bill Gesenius for probably some more, I don't know, legal terminology. But that's the intent that I get. Is that the intent that you get, Mark?
I think it went back to, Corey doesn't have traffic all day. And if the lady at the front door, or the man or whoever else is sitting there and there's nobody in the store, should they be required to have a mask on? should the person in the office be required to have a mask on? If they're in the building, like, again, I have different rules in my office. If we get up and go to the bathroom, if we go into a room with other people, you always wear a mask. If you're sitting in your office, and you can keep, technically, if you're in your office, you don't have to wear a mask if nobody else is in there.
Well, and I think that's part of the existing ordinance though, because I think you would consider like, I guess I don't know how Corey considers it now, but if he doesn't already, he could declare that his office is not open to the public. And then it's, I mean, item A says it's required when it's visited by customers or members of the public. Any area, any space visited by customers. So I mean, we already have there's already an opportunity for people to designate areas in their facility, such as you just described.
So we're saying if Corey's in his office, then he didn't have to have a mask on, because there's no public in his office.
And he's also not near other people, based on the other part of that. He's in his office by him, I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill. I mean.
Well, I mean, you're talking hypotheticals here, but I've thought about this in my own business. I have an assistant who sits out front. I have myself in an office that has a separate door. And frankly, I've kind of decided that a client is not the same thing as a member of the public. So I'm not requiring her to wear a mask at all times. She does when she comes in, when a client comes in. But again, it's kind of a gray area. But I don't think it's right to require her to wear a mask all day when there is no one in the office except for appointments that are previously made.
But by that justification, pretty much my entire business model would follow that.
I'm just saying, that's my interpretation. Rebecca asked for my interpretation.
Which, I mean, in my situation, I've pretty much made almost my entire building a private area where no customers are allowed. But you run into a gray area with that. It's like Corey's office. If he has one customer come in there during that day, is that now considered a public space for 24 hours or for perpetuality forever? Legal stuff sucks. I'm glad you're a lawyer, because I don't want it, man.
In response to your suggestion there, no, I don't think inviting someone into your private office turns it into a public space. It's still your control as to who comes into your office.
I mean, I'm just saying, if it's a public space, I don't even know how we define it. I don't know who determines what's a public space. If there's commerce in the area, then I guess it's a public space. I don't know. I don't know how we determine what a public space is. I mean, that in and of itself creates a problem. If you have materials where other people can be, that's public space. Everybody who's in that area should have a mask on. If you're not in that public space, if you're not working next to people, then again, if we're not gonna enforce it, I mean, I don't know why we're doing it. I think it needs to be a little more common sense than we tell everybody has to wear a mask in the business all day.
I think why we're doing it is that we have been told by scientists and medical personnel, this is how to keep you as safe as we possibly can. This is all we have to offer right now. And, you know, a lot of people took exception with all of those exceptions. You know, you've got an exception for this and an exception for that. And in my mind, what I'm thinking is that I want people to use their own common sense and care for other people. Just period, just care for other people. And if you have any idea that what you're doing is compromising other people's health, then I don't think that's okay. And so, you know, I understand how awful this is for our business community. This is just catastrophic. And I get it. And it's just a very tragic time. Chief Davis and all of his officers is, hey guys, we're just trying to keep people safe. We're not gonna do tickets unless you get to be a real jerk about this and whatever. But this is just about keeping people safe. And, so I don't know what are you guys gonna do?
Well, at least to throw it out there, I guess you made a motion.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the wording, so I don't know what we need to do next. We have to decide on the official wording. Do we come up with wording later? I mean,
Well,
You don't come up with the wording later, you come
Yeah.
up with the wording now.
That would still be discussed and voted on the next council meeting, is that?
No, if someone wished to propose a new ordinance tonight, they could do so by making a motion that would include the proposed language of the new ordinance. And proposing, the motion would be it ordained by the city of Lensborg that section so-and-so will be amended to read as follows. As long as those words are written into the minutes, that would be a legitimate ordinance upon its publication. Your other alternative is, if someone wants to wait and propose a new ordinance in writing where everybody can see the exact language at the next council meeting, they can do so. Or you can choose to do nothing and let this ordinance stand.
Does it expose businesses against litigation?
This has nothing to do with the litigation situation.
All
Did
other
I
questions.
I mean, I don't know how to say it, but I'm just saying that if there's nobody in the business and the person doesn't want to have their mask on, I don't think they should have to have their mask on.
I think the way that Corey worded it there would meet what you're wanting to accomplish.
No, because it says, and social distancing, so that would be saying that if I can stay at the counter and they can stay somewhere else in the, that's when you get the gray spaces, because, you know, they're 4.5 feet apart over there, not 6 feet, so. That's where I think I would eliminate that and just say that anybody who is, if there's somebody in your business or coming, yeah, are you gonna have to throw your mask on? Is that advantageous? Probably not. Is it great? No, but we've all touched our masks tonight, so I don't think we're gonna prevent people being careless. But if somebody's walking in the store and the person has 3 seconds to put their mask on, I mean, honestly, we're overstepping a little bit, because if I walk into a business and I'm not comfortable with how the business is operating, I should leave.
How do you know that though? If you walk in, if I'm working in there, I mean.
We're never gonna know. I mean,
But why is that too much to ask? If we've done this for the good of the public.
because
health?
you're saying they're breaking the law. You're basically saying that that person has been there for 2 hours and nobody's in there, and they're breaking the law by not having a mask on. That feels a little bit like overreach.
I agree.
And then you have to ask yourself on the question you just asked, if you go in the back of XYZ restaurant, are they wearing masks while they prepare your food? Yeah, most of them probably are. I guarantee you there's some that they aren't. And it's illegal.
But I guess I just,
How would you know?
the ordinance needs to, I mean, yes, it's hard, but the ordinance needs to reflect the best case scenario, I think. I mean, what we want to strive for, even if we aren't perfect. Best chance for safety.
Well, I'm still proposing whatever. I don't know how I need to word it, but
Well,
if
what
somebody's
if-
coming in.
Yeah.
What if you just, I mean, what if the language just read, anytime more than one person was present, period?
That one person, why don't I just say when anybody's present? Like, why one person? Like, just, if there's
Other than
anybody in the,
yourself?
if there's anybody in there.
Anytime anyone other than yourself is present in the room.
Yes. And scratch the social distancing. If somebody's in your business, in a public space, you need to have a mask on, period. I think Blaine was wordsmithing it up over there. Did you have words?
Well, I think you're close. I mean, employees that are working in any space visited by customers or members of the public, anytime more than one person is present, period. I think that achieves what you're.
Sounds good to me.
So is that,
So is that your motion?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to also read that.
Can you type that up?
Well, so all you said was basically exactly what he has, minus the social distancing. He just,
Yes.
previously to what you just read, Mark had said in email, anytime anyone other than yourself. So do you want to leave it at the anytime more than one person is present, or the anytime anyone other than yourself?
I would suggest using the word person and not self. Bill, go ahead.
What you're talking about is an ordinance that amends Section 2, Paragraph 2A of Ordinance 5240. So if you wish to propose a motion, it should be that the motion is to be it ordained by the city of Lensbourg that Section 2, Paragraph 2A be amended to read as follows. And if that's employees are working in any space visited by customers or members of the public, when such customers or members are present on the premises, or similar language to that. But I think you need to make it quite clear in the motion that you are proposing an ordinance that amends an existing ordinance and specifically states the language that you are proposing.
Isn't that what you pretty much did, but you stated it for just what he said?
Sure. Well, I don't, you're proposing the language, not me.
Yeah. I think we're fine with what Blaine said. Just how we present it to say we're whatever he just said.
Anytime more than one person is present?
I mean, that just. I mean, it gets you by. I mean, yeah, if somebody else from your staff walks in there, I mean, again, you should have social distancing or have a mask on. So yeah, one person's probably makes sense.
Well, in this case, you wouldn't be social distancing, you'd have to have a mask on.
Correct. Which you should. You shouldn't leave it up to, are we 6 feet apart or are we not 6 feet apart? We're in the same we're in the same public space, we should have masks on.
I don't care to take a measure with me. So, yeah.
If we're in the same public space, we should have masks on. How you define public space, I don't know. That seems to be a discussion for another day.
Well, that's just it, on the public space, if in Corey's situation, it's 8 o'clock, he's back there doing books, he's got an employee that's dusting shelves or whatever employees do after hours, is that a public space at that point? It's closed, business is closed, it's not open to the public, then is that a public space?
Well, I would say no.
I would say no also, but until we have a definition of, and
Well, even if the
have a
definition
definition of is, and the definition of what is.
Surely the definition of a public space is already established, is it not? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not
Well, regardless of that, employees are working in any space visited by customers or members of the public. So that means even if it's not public right now, if it's visited by the public at any point in time, then regardless of whether anyone's there, that's the problem with this. Is if it was a public place at one point in time, it gives no timeline. Like, you could have your house open for a house showing, and now it's a public place indefinitely. Hey, I mean, common sense, yeah, I agree. Common sense, it shouldn't be, but it's nice to have it spelled out.
Where are you reading the public space part? It just says any space. But again, I only have what Corey presented me. He could have totally made this whole thing up. So it just says any space that are visited by members, or by customers or members of the public. It's not really saying public space.
If you look at page 2 of the original ordinance,
I don't
think
know.
that's the original ordinance, 5240, page 2, under definitions, it has a definition of public space.
As I would interpret section 2(1), that would apply to individual and personal responsibility. Requirement of persons. Paragraph 2 of section 2 applies to businesses and organizations. So section 1 would apply to me as an individual, and then section 2 would be, so you're talking about individuals in the context of public space. Section 2 is dealing with businesses and defines that space as visited by customers or members of the public.
But then in definitions, it says public space means any indoor or outdoor space or area that is open to the public. This does not include private residential property or private offices or workspaces that are not open to customers or public visitors.
Correct.
So that's where the office is already covered. I mean, unless somebody, I mean, it's not a private office. Somebody does not have to wear a mask according to this ordinance if they are working in an office that's not open to the public.
I mean, if it's gonna be this hard, then let's just not enforce it and go on. I mean, that's what it sounds like. We're just not going to enforce it.
I don't think that's what they
tickets
said.
and merit.
I think they do enforce it. I think they said they're not going out of their way to, it's an educational effort first. Because I think most people do the right thing. I mean, most people understand that this is a public health effort to make sure that people are safe. So it's not a matter of not enforcing it. I think they're just trying to be reasonable and have common sense.
So do we have verbiage? Or do we still need wording?
Well, so far I have. I don't know. Be it ordained by the governing body of the city of Lensborg that section 2 ordinance 5240 be amended to employees working in any space visited by customers or members of the public anytime more than one person is present.
Roxy, it's section 2, paragraph 2A.
Neil?
Sure, I'll second that.
Well, you were sounding like you had a better idea, so I was open to your. I just didn't like the social distancing part. I don't like it when you leave it.
I have 50,000 ideas.
Oh.
We're not gonna go down that road, Mark.
So basically, we're saying if you have a place that are visited by customers or the public, and more than one person is in that space, everyone's required to wear a mask.
Correct?
Does that sound okay?
List section 2, item 2A. It just simply states employees are working in a space visited by customers or members of the public, and we're looking to amend it to say anytime more than one person is present. Where does it say that that's when they're required to have a mask? I mean, it doesn't, it's like an incomplete sentence.
Well, you have
The
to,
part
subparagraph 2, right above that, is applicable to all of the subsections with letters.
Yeah, that would be the preamble.
Okay. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Okay, so in 2D, it says employees in any room or enclosed area where other people except for individuals who reside together are present and are unable to maintain 6-foot distance except for infrequent or incidental moments of closer proximity. And that's under 2 for businesses and organizations. So how is that different than?
Say that again. You read fast.
Sorry. It's under 2D, it says employees are in any room or enclosed area where other people, parentheses, except for individuals who reside together are present and are unable to maintain a 6-foot distance except for infrequent or incidental moments of closer proximity.
That has to do with, like, say, the back of my shop, not the front of my shop. In the back of my shop, employees are in a room, they're enclosed, but they can maintain distance. Or if they were unable to maintain distance, then you would have to do it. The other part's more the front, forward-facing part of the business. A is more like your showroom, your shop. So like, I think of D as like a manufacturing plant. If you're working on an assembly line with a bunch of other people.
But it doesn't
even
say
though
that, right? So I mean, it leaves an open gray area to interpret, so.
Well, it's an enclosed room where you can't maintain 6 feet.
Right, so I mean, how is that different?
Yeah. Corey's in his business by himself, there's no one else present, it's already covered.
That's what I was kind of trying to say earlier. I don't think we've really talked about anything that's not kind of already covered here, but.
Corey, you want to weigh in on this, or can I do that, Mayor?
Sure.
He's been sitting over there pretty quiet, which is unusual for Corey, but. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm oxygen.
I had an opportunity.
I have no oxygen here, I hardly breathe, so I'm sorry. No. I don't want to become the poster child of the anti-maskers, trust me. Whether I'm at my desk or not, should I go up to
You're fine. We can hear
the?
you.
Okay.
No,
That is for the public.
for the public also.
Oh.
By the way, I've testified in front of government bodies for 20 years, hundreds of times, and never have I about fainted in the middle of that testimony, but you about saw it earlier today, my apologies. I had ties too tight, shoes too tight, never a brand new mask, ever, but anyway, no, maybe just redirect. This is exactly what I didn't want to happen. I didn't want to call attention to all the negatives about an ordinance that's very important to keep in our public health. I was just simply trying to protect from chief having to come out and make tough calls and us having to deal with it. You think it's far-fetched that people would complain about seeing someone in the store without a mask? I don't know if you've been on social media, but I almost guarantee it'll happen. Give you an example, I took a picture of a family I go, taking a picture of themselves on our dollar horse without masks. And I had people firing on Facebook, I'll never go to that store when there's no one wearing a mask. And we all had masks in our store, but because a family was taking pictures without a mask on, that's the type of thing you'll see on social media. So all I was doing was trying to have just a little subtle change, not make a big deal about it. Sorry, it's become a little bigger than I hoped, but we were just trying to protect the local businesses from essentially everyone becoming lawbreakers. The people I've talked to, they said, oh, I'm not gonna do that. I mean, that would be the quote you hear up and down Main Street, and probably on the highway too. But I didn't go out and solicit opinions. I didn't try to get people lined up to come and testify. I did, because I did not want to make a big issue about it. So I thought it was kind of a simple little common sense thing. Anyway, my purpose wasn't to protect me sitting in my office. It literally was for the clerks and my business. And like the council mentioned, I was concerned that if I had a clerk, even though she could have been sitting there for 2 hours on her own, not wear a mask, we got turned in, chief has come out, I think I would be the one that would get the ticket, and because I wasn't there to require it. So it was just that gray area that I thought would actually make it clear, not more. So as far as the distancing, that's not a problem. I lopped it off like right, truncated right at the end of the without more than one person is fine. But again, I did not intend for it to become a huge item of debate, but at the same time, I just felt obligated to hopefully protect businesses and the city. I think just, I don't know if we want to get in a situation where people would be filing complaints and you'd have to deal with it. Normally, I'd say it probably never happened, but today's day, I'm pretty sure it would happen. I could be wrong, but that's it. I answered your question, Rick, did I?
Sure.
Or Councilman, excuse me. Did I?
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, I don't think you're the only business that feels this way. I know you're not, because I've been talked to by more than that. And I think what you did show is there's a lot of gaps in all of this, that we probably need to look a little closer at, and not wait for 100 years to the next pandemic to do that.
Yeah, I do not want to distract from the importance of the ordinance. That was not the intention at all. It was, again, I guess, as just a local business owner, I understand the importance of educating, but at the same time, why do we have a law if we never intend to enforce it?
Well,
Good question. And maybe another thing, I guess, if there is science behind it, I would stand aside, but I haven't, or stand down on it totally, but I haven't seen anything that would even come close to suggesting if someone was in a room and 2 hours later someone walked in, or even 5 minutes, or even 10 minutes, that it would be a health hazard.
I think that information came out several weeks ago about it being airborne. There's things called super spreaders where someone can actually infect 52 people in an hour that they're finding now. So, I mean, the science is changing all the time, 100%, but there is no question about it spreading quickly.
True.
At the last I read on Airborne, there was a question on Airborne, but like you said, it
Details of it,
changes.
for sure. I mean, exactly how it works, but they do know it is airborne.
Yeah, that's more recent information than
Yeah, it
what I
just came
read.
out in the last couple of weeks, I would say.
And just, I'll sit down, but in closing, there, never ever would I suggest something that I felt would threaten our employees, our customers, my family. It's not, if I thought that this little tweak would all of a sudden put them at greater risk, I wouldn't suggest it. But that's not the intent at all. I do apologize, I did not, I was hoping it would evolve, but good debates always healthy. I appreciate it. Thanks.
So, do you want to read that again, or where are we?
Motion by
I made the
Mark,
motion,
second by
Neil
Neil.
seconded.
Can you, but before, did we read the have the motion
Yeah.
read? And it has been moved, it is moved and seconded?
Moved and seconded.
Okay, yeah, please read.
Be it ordained by the governing body of the city of Lensborg that section 2, paragraph 2A of ordinance number 5240 be amended to employees are working in any space visited by customers or members of the public anytime more than one person is present.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
It's
It's
an
gonna be
ordinance.
roll
Oh,
call.
oh, this is an ordinance, sorry. Okay. Roxy?
Mark,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Kirsten,
No.
Rick,
Yes.
Blaine,
Yes.
Rebecca,
No.
Emil,
Yes.
Jody.
Yes.
Motion carries. Any others?
Before you leave for this evening on the budget adoption, all of the council members need to sign the budget certificate before we submit it to the county. So if I can get your signature on 2 copies of the budget certificate, I'd appreciate it.
Where is that?
Right here?
All right.
We can go this way by passing one that way. and One that way.
No, I can't.
I guess that's not
It's
right.
electronic signature.
Anywhere on one of those 8 lines.
You're gonna have to wash your hands like that.
I don't have.
Don't go there.
I haven't put it near my face, so you're all right.
Okay, I won't put
Do
it
we need
in
a
my.
motion to adjourn?
You want a motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
A second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Did you say we needed to sign both or just one?
Both. I kind of sent them this